Will Trump gonna do something about Iran or not?
Trump is quite unpredictable, as we know. Trump always chickens out. Many a times, what he's trying to do is
Why is Iran so hell-bent on protecting its ballistic missile program?
that will be a suicide pact if they agree. Iran is in the weakest position since the Islamic Revolution took place in February 1979. The only worry or the concern that Israel might be having is if the United States strikes Iran, then there have been infiltration of CIA, infiltration of Mossad. Definitely
If Iran is there, then the Mossad is there, CIA is there, then the Chinese intelligence and the Russian spies are also there. So do you think Chinese also getting into this entire equation?
Iran is a very significant supplier of fossil fuels to China.
We also know the issue of Chabahar going on. So how do you view India's position in all this scenario?
Hi, I'm Yash Goel and with me is my colleague Siddharth Srivastav. Guys, we are meeting in a very different format and perhaps in this format for the very first time because this is the first episode of TN Podcast. And today we are going to tell you, you have seen a lot of podcasts on YouTube, you go on the platform and everyone is there with this mic, but this one is different because we get voices which are credible, which are nuanced, and most importantly, the voices which matter. And when we spoke to you regarding our first episode, a lot of you were interested in talking about Iran. And that's why today we are going to decode the entire geopolitics around Tehran, Donald Trump, and the biggest question, will Trump gonna do something about Iran or not?
And for that very purpose, we are being joined by Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, who has served in Indian Foreign Services for more than 3 decades. Sir was India's ambassador to countries like Kazakhstan, Sweden, Latvia, and has held various diplomatic positions across geographies, including Washington, Moscow, Tehran, Bangladesh, Bangkok. Sir is also a prolific writer. You must have seen him on various TV debates, expressing his views on issues concerning India's foreign policy and international issues at large.
So thank you so much for joining us today here in the Times Now studio. So when Siddharth was, when we were discussing about your profile and what you have done, you have a very elaborate portfolio for you. You have done a lot of work for the country. 2 places you have been to are Washington and Tehran. And that's why we thought we'll speak to you regarding Iran. And I want to start this discussion because we as journalists also, we are doing everyday stories and every day Donald Trump is coming out and saying, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll finish Iran, I'll finish off Khamenei, I'll topple the regime, I'll do this, I'll do that. But what is he really doing?
Yeah, thank you very much, Siddharth. Thank you very much, Yash, for having me on your show. And it's your first show. It's your maiden launch of the TN podcast. So I'm particularly delighted to be here with you. Thank you. So you're very right. Donald Trump has been saying so much that, he will be taking action against Iran. In fact, if you remember, he did take action last year in June when he had gone out and bombed the nuclear facilities of Iran, whether it was in Isfahan, whether it was in Fordo, whether it was in Natanz, all 3 of them. And he said that, he has, this is the word he used, he has obliterated everything. And but still, apparently that obliteration was not adequate. It was not enough because he's again talking about, that the nuclear enrichment program of Iran should come down. Also, when we are talking about will he do anything, even in his first term, he did that. He got out of what is called the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or the otherwise, in more colloquial terms, it is known as the Iranian nuclear deal. And he got out of it and he imposed sanctions on Iran. Sanctions had been taken off by Barack Obama in 2015 when the JCPOA was signed. And then there were certain commitments that Iran had made that it is going to not go beyond certain limits as far as the enrichment is concerned. But he moved out of that because he said that agreement, that nuclear deal was not enough. It was not adequate. It was not comprehensive. And we need something more than that. So right now here also when we are talking about this sort of a thing has been going on, I would say particularly over the last 1 month, or maybe a little longer than that, because the whole protests and the demonstrations in Iran started on the 28th of December, as I'm sure your listeners will recall, your viewers will recall. That is when it all started, and just around in the first 10 days of January. That's what he started threatening Iran with, the Iranian leadership, whether it is the President Masoud Pezeshkian or Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader there, that, if you continue to shoot, if you continue your oppression and persecution of the protesters, then we are going to attack. And that is which did lead to some change as far as the Iranian position is concerned. But right now it is three issues on which he is focusing. Number one, on the nuclear enrichment. Number two, on the range of the missiles that Iran has.
Basically,
that it
the
should
ballistic
be
missiles.
ballistic missiles, because in terms of what is the range, what is the distance, and the third is on. There's a third issue also. It'll come back to me. Yeah. These are the three basic issues. The operation of the various. Its proxies in the region.
Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthis.
Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthi, etc. That these three, all these aspects, they should
The axis
stop.
of resistance.
The axis, yes, the axis of resistance from there, that should come to a close.
Yeah.
So these are the three elements, and that is why he's been imposing so much of, applying so much of pressure on Iran.
Do you think there is going to be a war at all?
Well, number one, Mr. Trump is quite unpredictable, as we know. It is, meaning he has also been given this sobriquet. I don't think it is it's been done without any basis. Taco, Trump always chickens out. He keeps on sort of, saying something, and then he also sort of, retracts, he retreats from what he has said. But here, I think we also see that many a times what he's trying to do is he's applying pressure. And this is the policy of maximum pressure. He got Abraham Lincoln, USS Abraham Lincoln from South China Sea, from East China Sea here. And meaning that is a very formidable force.
He's also moving USS Ford to
I was about to come. From the
Yeah.
Caribbean, Gerald R. Ford with the Delta Force.
Yeah.
He's coming with that. And that sort of, it's totally unprecedented to get both of these on that side. So, he has the arsenal ready. He has everything ready if he wants to do it. And that is what the Iranians are very concerned about, are petrified about, if I may say so. So their drawing back has basically been because they don't want any such confrontation with the United States, because they know that they are not a match for the United States. Of course, there have been, a number of sort of doomsday scenarios also that have been mentioned, whether, Iran could block off the Strait of Hormuz.
Right.
And, what are the implications for that? And we can discuss about that also, because that is definitely a lever that Iran has. But it has never used that leverage so far, so we can discuss about that. But we see that Iran has found that they need to lower the temperatures a little bit, so that at least either temporarily or permanently Mr. Trump can be weaned away from this aggressive path and aggressive posture.
But sir, why is you spoke of nuclear program and ballistic missiles program? The talks that were held between the two sides on February 6 was not very conclusive. So why is Iran so hell-bent on protecting its ballistic missile program?
They are ready to negotiate on their nuclear program,
Yeah.
and they said they can come down in terms of nuclear enrichment to below 60%. But what is that, like ballistic missiles ko leke, why they are so hell-bent?
I think that will be, in my view, committing harakiri.
Okay.
That will be a suicide pact if they agree to removing the ballistic missile. Because that means countries which are adversarially disposed towards them. For instance, Israel. They can continue to bomb them, they can continue to hammer them with whatever instrument, and they will have no possibility whatsoever to be able to launch missiles on Israel, because that is, or for that matter, launch missiles on many of the US bases in the region.
Right.
And that is one of the biggest reasons, matter of concern, as far as the United States is concerned. That is also one of the reasons why Bibi Netanyahu has been, meaning after Trump has come, I think he's been there about 6, 7, 8 times.
Yeah.
And that is basically to keep Trump on his side and to make sure that the pressure on Iran is sustained. And on all these issues, for it, of course, as far as the nuclear program is concerned, nuclear enrichment is concerned, that is an existential threat as far as Israel is concerned. Also, as far as the missiles are concerned, because we know that last time when there was this conflict and Iran had launched more than 300 missiles onto Israel, many of them found their way, or at least a few of them. I'll not say many, a few of them found their way. But then Israel is such a small territory. Israel is such a small country. If it lands somewhere in Tel Aviv or Haifa or any of the other places, then the potential to cause damage is huge. As compared to that, if you look at Iran, Iran is a big, geographical space. And also in terms of population, etc., meaning it has that huge human asset also. So Israel might be launching so many missiles, but the damage it will be able to inflict on Iran will be significant, will be substantial. But proportionately, if Iran were to able have this capability of launching all these missiles on Israel, then of course it will be very, very difficult. And the last point you mentioned, you are right. What Iran has said, that from 60% they are willing to bring it down to 20%. But then what the United States is demanding, or at least some of the extreme, Republican congressmen and senators, what they are demanding is that it should be 0%.
0%,
They should not have the possibility of enrichment at all. So this is also something that Iran doesn't want to do. And, your question as to why did the negotiations on 6th of February in Muscat, why did they not yield results? Because, the position of some of the negotiators in US is that it should be 0%, and Iran has, categorically rejected that position.
So, you have mentioned multiple things here, and one thing what I think after looking at this situation, do you think US also fear that if they start the Iran war, they won't be able to complete that campaign? Because what they did in Libya, what they did in Iraq, those territories were much more smaller as compared to Iran. And like you mentioned, Iran is more geographically vast. They have mountains also to protect them, and they have a very huge desert. Population is vast. So do you think somewhere Trump understands that if the United States gets back into any conflict, in such conflict with Iran, he won't be able to finish that conflict? Because when he came to power, he promised one thing to his MAGA base, that US won't be involved in long-term wars in the Middle East.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you put your finger on the pulse, that he doesn't want what have been known as forever wars.
Forever wars.
That, once you get into that place, then you sort of, it continues and all that. So the other thing is he does not have at this moment, in my view, the capacity to dominate, meaning he might be, what happens the day after? Once he's comes there, once he's able to bomb. Now you also see that many of the countries in the region, now we are coming not only US, Israel, but also some of the countries in the region.
Yeah, absolutely.
For instance, those countries, they are skeptics, like Saudi, like
Qatar.
UAE.
Yes.
Qatar, I would still put in a slightly different category. Qatar and Oman are different category because they are mediators. Because they are trying to get, whether it was Afghanistan, whether it was Taliban, USA, etc., whether it was Israel and Houthis and some of the others, they are trying to get Hamas. They were trying to get them together. Oman has offered its services. Oman has always been a centrist. And it has not, it's not like Qatar also that it has supported some of the Muslim Brotherhood, etc., etc. So in that sense, Qatar and Oman are a little different, but there are some of the other skeptics, UAE is there, Bahrain is there, Saudi Arabia is there, who have said that they would not support any sort of, US
Base
forces,
usage. Right.
using either their airspace or water or any of their other facilities in any way, to launch attacks against Iran. So in that sense, it becomes difficult for the United States to launch concerted long-term, and then they don't have a plan for what comes the day after.
Absolutely.
After the regime, even after Masood Pezeshkian, something, or Ali Khamenei, something happens to him. They don't have a credible alternative.
But they are projecting Raza Pahlavi as one of the person who can fill in that gap. Do you really think Pahlavi can take that?
You see, the point is, I don't think Mr. Trump is convinced.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to, in my view, even though he might be convinced, because, yesterday we saw that in Munich, there were such huge demonstrations as far as the Iranians and, pictures and posters and placards of Raza Pahlavi. They were sort of, shown, they were displayed that he could be there. And Raza Pahlavi also, he's trying to portray himself in that sense.
Savior of protesters.
Yeah, in a manner, savior, but then he also wants to send out a message that I am not hungry for power. I'm not sort of, promoting this or supporting this because I want to come to power in Tehran. The message that he wants to send is, I want justice, I want peace, I want stability, I want prosperity for the people of Iran. And they have not got justice. They have been wronged. So I am at the forefront only till the time that this regime goes, and after that I have no role to play. This is exactly what he said yesterday. Although this is not the sort of thing that I have heard him speak earlier. And even when, Lindsey Graham was speaking in Munich yesterday, he also said, help is on the way. And this is what the Americans have also said, dangling that carrot in front of them, that you continue your protests and demonstrations, etc. So, to come to your question, I don't think at this moment Pahlavi is such a credible alternative. So, if there is no alternative, like in Venezuela, he was able to get Madame Rodriguez, and the whole set of people who were in power and authority. He did need all that time, and they worked on them, and they were able to persuade them that we will allow you to be here, we will allow you to continue. You just let Nicolas Maduro and his wife to be taken away by us. So that, they had a plan. It could work. Now, if there is no plan, then all the countries in the region, in the Middle East, are very apprehensive that if, there is a crumbling, after all, they just celebrated the 47th anniversary of the February Revolution on the 11th of February. So once this whole structure, if it were to crumble, if it were to get dismantled, then there is going to be amazing sort of, people who are going to be crossing over, who are going to be refugees into other countries. And the instability that is going to cause is going to be totally unmanageable.
Right. But sir, do you not think that this is the most favorable condition for US? Because given the economic turmoil that Iran is facing, then there are internal fragility. The moment is very fragile vulnerable for Khamenei. Internal protests, more than 30,000 people have been killed as per several reports.
Certain reports are indicating 30,000.
However, official figures are much lesser. But do you not
Official figure are around 3,000.
Around 3,000.
I think at times they had mentioned 12,000 also. At times
but they took back those numbers. They said that was a miscalculation or something like that.
So now, will US ever get a more favorable condition to attack Iran, if not today? because, as I said, the economy is in trouble. Rial is depreciating against dollar, and then we see the internal troubles for Khamenei building up. The war and that axis of resistance is not as strong as it was 2-3 years ago because of the war with Israel. So, do you think will Trump ever get a more favorable condition than this?
No, you are very right. You are very right. You see, number one, I think Iran is in the weakest position that it has ever been since the Islamic Revolution took place in February 1979. That's true. Because as you said, the axis of resistance, they are hugely depleted, they are hugely degraded, they are hugely, the strength has come down. We've seen in case of Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthi also, and even in Syria, what their support was. So definitely that is there. And as far as Iran itself is concerned, there is so much of pressure. The internally also, it is for the first time that we saw on the 28th of December that the Bazaris,
the traders,
they have sort of, come out against the regime. I was in Iran in the early 1980s, just after the 79 revolution.
Right.
So I have seen that period. And that is the period how the Imam Khamenei from Paris was able to come back in 79 was because the bazaar left the Shah. And see the as far as the all the merchant community, because Iran is really a country of merchants, of bazaris, and they are very, very powerful, both economically as otherwise also. It doesn't have all that, barring oil. It doesn't have all that, some handicrafts, carpets, etc., etc. It doesn't have much industry. And ever since 1979, it has not really had that sort of stability to be, to build its economy. So the Bazaris are still, carry a lot of clout and a lot of influence. So the Bazaris are also against students. The economic situation is very bad. So you're very right that, and that is what many of these American, hardliners, they have been saying, that we will never get an opportunity which is like this. And this is what Lindsey Graham also has been talking. I'll call him the warmonger in chief, really. That is what he sort of, No, also because he's the one who proposed that there should be 500% duty against India because of purchase of Russian oil, or any of the countries that purchases Russian oil. That's meaning absolutely madness. But that's a separate case. But here you're very right. But I think what is Mr. Trump trying to do in this case is basically apply as much pressure as possible and to give an indication to Iran that we mean business. That if you do not relent, if you do not sort of, come down on your knees, then we are going to bomb you very heavily. Meaning, just imagine, as we're talking Gerald R. Ford or, Abraham Lincoln, 90 F-16s that are there. There are so many destroyers, 3 destroyers, all of them, 10,000 personnel, military personnel on each of the bases. So these are formidable forces. And, this must have sent a message to Iran also that, they're not coming here into this region for a picnic or something. They mean business. And that is why they are relenting. That is why on every issue. But of course, that there are certain red lines. But they are also, when they are negotiating, they are trying to gauge the intent of the adversary as to how far will it go. And, to the extent that Mr. Trump is, predictable or credible, they would think that there is a reasonable likelihood of Trump, going true to his threats and bombing them if he doesn't get what he's asking for.
I think one of the red lines also here is we haven't heard any of Americans being killed in Iran as of now. Do you think if any such news comes that American citizen is killed in the protest, or perhaps otherwise also, that will give a trigger to Trump to attack or to send in troops all guns blazing?
Yeah, basically, I think there would not be very many Americans there. Frankly, there is not an American embassy. American embassy was closed in 1979 when we had all these, the hostages being taken by the Pasdaran, by the Islamic Revolutionary Guards. So that has been, and I think their interests are being managed by the Swiss embassy.
Swiss embassies,
So as it is, for the last 47 years, there's no business, there's no nothing. Although I do remember when I was there in the early 1980s, then a lot of American rice used to come there from Dubai. It used to be transshipment, but I don't think there would be all that very many Americans there, although they have said that they have the Iranians have found some Mossad operatives and some others who have been active there, who have been trying to incite and provoke the people there as far as the protests are concerned. But that would be one reason, that if he were to sort of, land his troops there, then there definitely would be casualties. And there would definitely be then sort of, body bags coming back. And that is not what, as you said correctly, Yash, that the MAGA crowd, will be very upset with that. Yeah.
So one more thing, like when we are talking about this entire calculus, Israel is quintessential part of this entire conversation. So do you think that is it more about Iran-US or is it about Iran-Israel only? Do you think that? Because and like adding to this thing, do you see Israel ever agreeing to a US-Iran deal?
Okay, let's put it this way. So let me take it from the last comment that you said about Iran US deal. Now, we do know that, in 2015, there was an Iran-US deal, JCPOA. And you also know how upset Benjamin Netanyahu was. That over the head of Barack Obama, who was the president at that time, he went and addressed the US Congress, basically trying to say, that it is not good for America, that, it's not helpful for peace, security in the region, and definitely not for the existence and continuity of Israel. He did that, and of course that made Barack Obama very, upset him, considerably. So I think both of them, because there is such a nexus between the United States and Israel, both of them, and with Mr. Trump being a Republican and being such a on the right of the center, and the relations between Iran and the United States, right from the day one, after 1979, after the Islamic Revolution took place, you see that Jimmy Carter had sent these helicopters to rescue the American hostages, diplomats who had been taken as hostages. But then that led to a fiasco. That was a huge imbroglio there. And that was a big problem. And after that, we have seen that there have been sanctions after sanctions that were imposed on Iran. We signed the INSTC, with Iran, Azerbaijan, Russia, and India in 2003. But then sanctions were imposed, we just could not take it forward. Even then, when we tried to take forward the Chabahar, that also we have not been able to do because Mr. Trump, when he came, 2015, as he mentioned, JCPOA was signed. But in 2018, he reversed that and, imposed sanctions and moved out of the JCPOA. So this problem between the hostility and adversarial ties between US and Iran has been continuing for the last 47 years. So it is not as if, it is United States is Israel's proxy in that sense that it. But definitely the nexus between the two of them is very, very strong because support for Israel in the United States is tremendous. Tremendous, is huge. And that is why you have seen that, even when Trump was in power, they recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. West Bank was, the construction on West Bank, etc. On the Golan Heights. So all of Israel's position were sought to be vindicated, was sought to be acknowledged and accepted. So I think it is both of them. The only worry or the concern that Israel might be having is that over our heads, not keeping our concerns and our safety, security concerns in mind, if the United States, for its own reasons, does a deal with Iran, which is detrimental to our interests. So that is why, Mr. Netanyahu is very much involved with Mr. Trump and has visited the United States so often. You would remember that when Biden was the president, then the understanding was not that strong.
Strong, yeah.
So that is why, although at the level of the two countries, they are very close to each other, but then of course the views of the leadership definitely matters.
But to add to that question which Yash asked, sir, there were reports last year which claimed that Netanyahu was in a way discouraging US from striking Iran. So what would Israel rather have, a US-Iran deal or a US striking Iran? So that question remains, that confusion remains in the region.
Yeah, basically, I think the reason, the rationale for that could have been that if the United States strikes Iran, then it would become, Israel itself would become a target of the missiles.
Yeah.
And so, that would be at the receiving end. So possibly that was the reason, that was the logic, that was the rationale why Israel was telling, and maybe it wanted it to be more, better prepared in terms of, if you remember, it was last June when Trump was in Canada for the G7, and he left G7 early, and basically to prepare for all this. I think one thing possibly we need to remember is that the United States today wants to prepare itself to the fullest extent before it launches any
attack.
attack or takes any offensive action against its adversary. We saw that happening in the case of Venezuela.
Yes.
It waited so long. It got its forces. Gerald R. Ford, the
nuclear powered submarine.
the nuclear powered submarine, the destroyers, the carriers, all of them were there before they launched it. So here also they maybe they wanted that it should come in with full force and in full strength. And that is what happened last June also, when all these nuclear sites of Iran were sought to be demolished by the United States.
Sir talked about one thing, that he was there. You were there in 1980s, if I'm
No,
not wrong?
1990s.
1990s.
No, 1980s. Sorry.
1980s.
Yeah, early 1980s.
Early 90s. So you've seen that post-revolution period over there. So if I may ask you, like, there was Khomeini and now there's Khamenei. So how do you compare these two leaders?
Well, he was Imam Khomeini, and this is Ayatollah. So in terms of, both of them are supreme leaders, but in terms of the standing, definitely, because he was the founder of the Islamic Republic, he was the one who was able to electrify the people and get Shah evicted from there at that time. So in terms of the moral standing and the moral support, he had a much greater control, but still I think Ali Khamenei also has that sort of control. Maybe comparisons would be a little difficult because Ali Khamenei has been there for how many years now? 30 plus years, late 80s he came there. And Imam Khomeini was there for just about less than a decade. So in that sense, there was not enough time because time takes the sheen off. Whenever there are rulers and those who are at the helm of affairs, there are problems, there are issues, and here, as far as Ali Khamenei is concerned, the supreme leader, there are so many challenges that have been there, and it has been a time of sanctions all the time. So the economic situation has not been all that good. Although I must tell you, I was there again, for a conference I had been invited. That was in 2019, just before COVID. Okay. The first COVID deaths in actually 2020. The first COVID deaths in Iran were found on the in February 21st of February 2020 in the city of Qom, and I was there on the 13th of February. So just a couple of days. And after that, there was a clampdown, but I was able to come back from there. And I could see that by and large at that time, it was not all that bad. The supermarkets, department stores, etc., were reasonably full, maybe in terms of choice. But, because we have to realize that Iran is a very blessed country. Very blessed because it has, the world's best quality of rice, adequate quality of rice, adequate quality of wheat, of cotton, of fruits. Absolutely the world's best quality of fruits, whether it's grapes or it's pomegranate, you name it, barring bananas. That's a tropical fruit, so they don't have that. But so they are in that sense quite self-sufficient, quite well-to-do. And if they have oil and if they are able to market their oil, then they're good. So, for 3-4 years from 2015 till about 2018, 2019, sanctions were removed. So they had a lot of investment coming in and their oil trade was free. So they would have been able to get lots of money. So at that time, things were quite good for them. But of course, it's been a steady decline, deterioration as far as the economic condition is concerned. And that's why we have seen, this decline in the value of the real that you spoke about and the rise of the Bazari community there.
So in 2009 also Iran witnessed massive protest. In 2013 too they witnessed very massive protest. This time, these protests, like we were reading on social media also, obviously the internet has been cut off in Iran in maximum places, but certain people who are able to put certain things on X, we are understanding that these protests are different from all those past protests, and certain people are comparing with the 1979 protest. So why is that internally also people are not able to channelize that energy into actually reaping out something out of these protests? Do you think it's the IRGC which is able to hold the fort, or do you think are there actually some pro-Khamenei people who are actually washing away what the anti-Khamenei people are actually saying and doing on the streets?
Okay, couple of things. You mentioned 2009, 2013. You forgot to mention 22.
22, exactly.
Because Mahsa Amini, that was the one that.
Yeah.
And it is, in terms of intensity, it has been growing. And what is said is that what is happening today or what was happening, last month, they were the worst protests to take place ever in the history of, after the Islamic Revolution happened there and, this government came to power. So definitely that is, and I think that is exactly comes close to what you said, Siddharth, that, why is it that there's the best time ever for the outsiders, for America, etc., to come in, because Iran is at its weakest position and the opposition is at its strongest. I think at that time, you see, what really energized the people was that there was an alternative. There was an alternative in Imam Khomeini. And he had that spiritual standing. And you see, also, everything was not hunky-dory as far as Iran at that time was concerned. There was a lot of corruption. There was a lot of moral decline, moral degradation as far as the society is concerned. And so in that sense, people wanted a change. They wanted to go back to more moral, spiritual values. And this is the sort of thing that Imam Khomeini was showing. So there was an alternative that people could turn to. And they made all the right noises, as leaders would tend to do when they are on their way in, that, we'll take care of, and the economy will be good, and they'll be united, and, will not be under the yoke of a foreign power, as it was seen, that America was imposing its will on them. Today, there is no alternative. I think that, in my view, is the biggest drawback as far as these protests are concerned. And there is no single leadership. There is no unified leadership. These are spontaneous, organic sort of, protests that are taking place. Maybe, and I would, quite agree with that, that there have been, infiltration of CIA, infiltration of Mossad. Definitely that would have taken place. But still, there is a considerable disquiet and considerable anger on the streets in Tehran and so many other places. Otherwise, it couldn't be happening all over. So I think this is the attempt to channelize that anger. What you mentioned that, internet is off, but there have been reports that, there are 6,000 Starlink
Satellite
receptors
dish
that have been put there so that people are able to sort of, communicate amongst themselves and channelize whatever, mobilize, whatever further action that they have to take. So that is why Mr. Reza Pahlavi finds that, he can project himself as a viable alternative and in that sense get the people together. So while some of them, in Iran, some of them have been brandishing his placards and his posters and all, but not all that many. And yesterday what I saw on the streets, and they said 250,000 people had, collected there. That's a large number.
Yeah.
And most of them were carrying placards of Reza Pahlavi. So maybe he is getting some bit of traction. But whatever I have heard from Mr. Trump, he doesn't seem to be convinced. And I don't think any of the leadership in Europe also is particularly convinced that he would be or he could be their man to sort of, lead the offensive in Iran.
So, do you think that, today there's social media? In '79, there was no social media. There was no this much of internet, and nothing like that was there at that time. So, do you think Mr. Pahlavi is just a poster boy and just a social media creation?
Yeah, he left Iran in the 70s.
70s, yeah.
He has not been there. So, all his, time he's been, meaning it brings to my mind something like, although the comparisons are not equivalent at all, what Mr. Tariq Rahman, he's been, for 17 years, but then he's been managing the affairs of the BNP, from a distance in terms of, giving online addresses to the people, to the BNP cadre and all. So that comparison is different, it's not comparing apples and apples. But still, he has been out of that place. He doesn't really understand the challenges. Of course, the heredity that Tariq Rahman gets from there, from his mother and father, the same heredity he also sort of, gets, Reza Pahlavi also gets from there. But I think it'll be a tough task. His credibility and his the confidence of the people in him would need to be bolstered, would need to be sort of, strengthened if he has to, prove to be a viable alternative.
So I also want to bring in the angle of Saudi, sir. Given the situation, Saudi has largely remained silent, and it has also said that it will not allow its airspace to be used by the US should Trump plan invasion in Iran. And while the Saudi Shia-Sunni conflict remains between the two countries, where do you see the role of MBS? Because he is busy making his economy less dependent on oil, and both governments in Iran and Saudi are similar. They are not democratic. So, do you think that MBS has that apprehension that should Saudi drift away from the US, and in future, if the alliance doesn't remain in a way that it is today, what is the future going to hold for US-Saudi relation?
Okay, as far as the what I can see, the short and the medium term, the nexus between the United States and Saudi Arabia will continue to be very strong, vibrant, robust, dynamic. I don't think any drifting on that score is going to happen. That having been said, all countries, many countries are hedging their bets. And that is why you would have seen that Saudi Arabia, along with China, they are strengthening their relations. Saudi Arabia was also invited to become a member of BRICS. It has not taken a call on that as yet, but still, I understand that many of their representatives are participating in their meetings. You would have seen how Putin had visited Saudi Arabia, how MBS had gone to Moscow. So they are all hedging their bets. So while the nexus, while the relationship, partnership between Saudi Arabia and the United States continues to be very strong, but it is sort of engaging other countries also. Now, as far as the Shia Sunni issue is concerned, you are right. It has been there hanging in the air for a long, long time. But over the last 2, 3 years, whether it is Saudi Arabia or it is the United Arab Emirates, they have started mending their ties. And there have been lots of visits that have taken place on both sides. So, as far as Saudi Arabia is concerned, it also wants peace and security because, if, as you mentioned yourself, Siddharth, very correctly, that MBS wants to move away from oil, then it wants peace, it wants security, it doesn't want that there should be instability in the region. And what is going to happen if America were to attack? Basically, it is that there is going to be instability, and if Iran also, in retaliation, starts firing at all the American bases, whether it is in Qatar or it is in Bahrain or it is in Kuwait or other places, then it is going to create huge instability. So Saudi Arabia is also not to say not keen, but very averse to any attack from United States. And one of the reasons why that had also happened when Israel attacked Qatar, and it was wanted to safeguard its own security, and maybe it thought the best was to tie up with Pakistan in some way, and that is why it came in for that pact. But these are some things that countries take these decisions for their own self-preservation at that particular point of time. Of course, knowing what the instability in Pakistan is, it can't provide security for itself in its own country. All parts of Pakistan are burning, whether it's Balochistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Gilgit-Baltistan, all the parts, Sindh, everywhere it's burning. So how will it be able to provide security to any other country?
So, when we talk about this entire scenario, like earlier we spoke about the axis of resistance. What happened during the last 12-day war was axis of resistance was sort of silence. Axis of resistance including the Iraqi militia also. This time they're saying that attack on Iran is attack on all of us, and it will set off a regional fire. Do you think that they will get involved if there is a possible strike, or if there is any sort of even a limited conflict this time? Because last time we saw a muted response from the entire axis of resistance, including Iraqi militia also. So do you think this time these are just verbal threats, or they will get into it with all their force?
Also because the reports are emerging that Hezbollah is rearming itself in Yemen.
Every day we do stories also. Hezbollah rearming, Hezbollah doing that, this. Red Sea is once again, they're trying to do something in Red Sea, but not actually, they're not all hands on deck in Red Sea. So what will...
I think, last time they did not act because the capacity is very degraded for all of them. Houthis might be the only ones who might have some power to be able to shoot fire missiles in the Red Sea and other places, so that they create problems for shipping there, and they create problems for Israel there. So that is a challenge. But I think as far as Hamas is concerned, Hezbollah is concerned, and the Iraqi militia, etc., I think they do not have much capacity. The second point is that Iran also threatens a great deal, that this is what we are going to do. Basically, again, it's gray zone warfare. It's info warfare, that you keep on, and you keep on taking your missiles out of your silos and showing it to the whole world that we have this capacity, we can do. But you can see what happened, those 300 odd missiles that they had fired last time on Israel. They were not really effective at all. Many of those missiles were shot in the air, and they were sort of so slow moving, even over Jordan and some of the other places. They were shot... these countries said that, we are doing it for self-defense because we didn't want our airspace to be used. But also, it was some sort of a show of support for Israel also, that, they didn't want this to happen. So I think the capacity of Iran and of the axis of resistance is, very declined significantly. So while they might threaten, but I don't think they'll really be able to
Join the
inflict
war, yeah.
very much damage on Israel.
So you talked about those 300 projectiles which was sent. I guess not all of them were missiles. They were drones
Rockets,
also.
rockets and
Rockets,
drones.
drones. And one thing which Iranian media is right now doing is they're doing a lot of propaganda regarding their drone programs, the Shahid drone family. So do you think that these, apart from the ballistic missiles, they have, because ballistic missiles are very expensive. It's like a drone is perhaps a 1/10 or even less,
yeah.
of compared to a proper ballistic missile. So do you think that drone equation is also something, because what we are seeing in Russia, Ukraine also, the kamikaze drone usage. So do you think that drone is also going to be a very crucial part of this entire equation?
I think so. Yeah, drones have definitely emerged as a very significant and very lethal form
Yeah.
of, instrument weapon in the warfare. And particularly, it started a few years ago, I think in 2022, with
Yeah.
the Armenia, Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan.
That is when the Turks gave the drones to Azerbaijan, and they were able to use it with devastating effect and impact. So here also now Shahid drones are being supplied by Iran to Russia
Russia.
also for the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So here also they have been able to perfect, they have been able to master that technology of manufacturing these drones. And definitely, if push comes to shove and something starts happening, then definitely they will be drones are going to be put to great use. But I'm sure if from on the other side also, they will be equally well prepared to deal with all these issues. I think the Golden Dome that they have, the missiles, not the Golden Dome is for Mr. Trump.
For the Trump.
Yes,
Okay,
that is the Greenland. So but Israel's dome itself, that they have. I don't think the missiles might be powerful enough to go through to pierce, but drones. I think they should be able to.
And I
deal with
think
that.
now the IDF also added the laser dome also, the
Yes.
new tech they've inducted on several fronts. I think on the northern side of the border they have started using that. So one thing you mentioned earlier that I had to ask you earlier, but the conversation pivoted other way.
Sure.
Whenever any instability happens in the Middle East, that region becomes a playground for a lot of covert operations and these intelligence agencies. The other day I was reading that now Chinese intelligence is also trying their hand in Iran, and they're perhaps trying to contain Mossad. I don't know if that was from a very credible source or not. I probably read it on X or somewhere. Do you think there is a possibility that now the intelligence warfare is not anymore between the IRGC and Mossad, and it has gone a point ahead where Iran is also, obviously Iran is there, then the Mossad is there, CIA is there, then the Chinese intelligence and the Russian spies are also there. So do you think Chinese also getting into this entire equation?
No, absolutely. Because you see, you would have seen that China has not really been able to do anything in Venezuela.
Venezuela, yeah.
Although they were the largest recipients of oil from Venezuela, they were off-taking from there. But because of the distance involved, they were not really able to do anything very much. And in any case, I think the quantum of oil that they were getting was not all that significant. Venezuela, I think, was mining only a little less than 1 million barrels a day, so it's not all that much. Now with Iran, they have signed a 20-year deal, $400 billion, for oil supplies to take place there. So they would be very much interested. And this is much nearer home.
Yeah.
Venezuela is far away, so other part, Western Hemisphere.
Yeah.
This is a part of their own neighborhood, and they are getting so much of supplies of oil. So it is, in my view, but natural, they would think, for them to get engaged in a much more proactive and meaningful manner as far as this region is concerned. So definitely, as far as the Russians are concerned, the FSB and the others would have been involved. Chinese would also have been involved, but that activity would have risen many times over. You would have taken a quantum leap. after all these things started, about a year ago or something, because its own energy security is impacted because Iran is a very significant supplier of fossil fuels to China. Yeah.
Sir, also I want to bring in the India angle.
Yeah,
now.
absolutely.
Sure.
Because India is a very key player in the region. It has its own interests at stake in the region. But it has also maintained a very strategically silent position so far. We also know the issue of Chabahar going on. So, how do you view India's position in all this scenario?
Basically, number one, India has not been, as used to be many decades ago. Our policy, anything that happens in the world, you go on the rooftop and give your, pronounce your position and all that. I think we've been much more nuanced on this issue and much more restrained on this issue, thinking as to what we need to do. So, first of all, we have been very categorical that Iran has the right to, nuclear energy, but not to nuclear weapons, because it is a signatory of the NPT, Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. So, under the provisions of the NPT, whatever nuclear energy it can produce, it has, in fact, the Bushehr plant, nuclear power plant, which has been set up with the assistance of the Russians. Even, in fact, the Soviets, it was set up there. So that is not an issue, but it is the enrichment of the uranium which would sort of, make it a nuclear weapon state.
Weapon grade
Yeah.
enrichment.
So India has been opposed to that, and India has been very categorical that we don't want more nuclear powers, and particularly in our own region, in our own vicinity, we don't, because that creates instability. As far as this is concerned, we have always maintained, that there should be a resolution of the issues through dialogue and diplomacy, not through conflict, not through confrontation. And so we don't want instability there. And this is our fundamental position. We want that, we should be able to develop Chabahar. We have been sort of, taking it through that Black Sea route to from Iran into Armenia, into Georgia, Black Sea, and even accessing Europe through that. So it is not only from Iran to Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan was the original signatory of the INSTC. But now we are looking at, because of Azerbaijan's increasing nexus with Pakistan and with Turkey. So there are, some concerns as far as that is concerned. So we are also promoting the route from Iran to Armenia to Georgia and to Europe. So what our fundamental interest in this region is stability, security, peace. So we don't want any of, through negotiations, what are going to take place. On the 6th, the first round in Muscat, Oman. The second round starting tomorrow, that is the 17th, in Geneva with the mediation of Oman. So we have put all our effort behind it, that should succeed. The negotiations, talks should continue, and it should not result in conflict in that region.
But sir, the issue of Chabahar port, last time we got a 6-month exemption, and while India has recently, MEA has said that it is not willing to leave that port. But do you think that maximum pressure applied, a tactic applied by Trump, will force India to leave Chabahar? And if it does leave Chabahar, what are the implications for India?
Yeah, meaning that is a bit of a speculation. We have sort of, being in Chabahar is a matter of our access to Central Asia and also the INSTC. That is number one. So that is a matter of also our principled stand of strategic autonomy. And you have heard what our External Affairs Minister has spoken about the strategic autonomy at the Munich Security Conference. That is something that is very dear to our policy. That is an integral element of our policy. And we will continue to follow that. Although he said it in the context of the import of Russian oil. But, strategic autonomy as a principle of India's foreign policy, that is there. We have been following it, and we will continue to follow it. But we'll have to see as to how we take it forward on that. Because I think what we really need to understand when we are talking about Mr. Trump's threats to Iran and his positioning, all these, the armada and the aircraft carriers, etc., is that this region continues to be very important for us. Why is it important? I have about 9 million people, 90 lakhs people who are stationed there. They are sending remittances to India. In terms of the trade, the United Arab Emirates is the third largest trading partner. Saudi Arabia is the fourth largest trading partner. United Arab Emirates is the second largest export destination for India. We are receiving huge quantities of investment from there. Whether it is $75 billion from the UAE or $100 billion from the Saudis. So huge source of investment. And of course, if you look at energy, if you look at oil, if you look at gas, fossil fuels, there are, we continue to receive. I think before we started getting about 35% from Russia, we were getting about 50-60% from there. So, in addition to that, the remittances that are coming, the very ambitious and the forward-looking IMEC, India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. So there are huge stakes that India has in that region of Middle East. Peace, security is absolutely essential, imperative for us to sort of, take our relationship to its fullest extent.
I think we have covered a lot of area, but now, sir, it's sort of a rapid fire, not exactly a rapid fire. But if you have to say, I'll give you three instances. What do you think is the most probable to happen? A big deal between Iran, US, a limited strike, or a full-blown war?
The first one.
Some
sort of a deal. Well, I will not say it's a big deal, but some sort of a deal which pushes any of the other two alternatives,
off the table.
Off the table.
Okay, and if just it's a scenario. If diplomacy fails, in instant the second rounds are beginning tomorrow, as you mentioned. Tomorrow, as in on the 17th.
On the 17th, yeah.
On the 17th of February, it's starting. So, if in case diplomacy fail, what are you seeing? What is going to happen the next 10 days or so? Do you think Trump's armada actually going in, or if I'm just saying it's the wildest of imagination, if diplomacy fails? So do you think Trump's armada going all in, or are we looking again at a limited strike like the 12-day war earlier?
Okay, let me put it this way. Again, as I said, as we were discussing right in the beginning, it's very difficult to predict what Mr. Trump is going to do, number one. So I think that has to be underlined every time that we speak as to what's going on. But he did say on the 12th of February that I will give this whole process 1 month.
1 month, yeah.
So from 12th February, it comes to 12th March. So at least he has said that himself. But that having been said, let me give a qualifier. Last time he had said that, for 2 weeks, nothing is going to happen. And then he sort of, bombed all these nuclear sites. So again, we have to keep that in mind. But at this moment, if it's a limited strike, I think the United States and Trump also knows that its impact is not going to be all that much. What does the United States really want in Iran? In my view, what it really wants is a regime change. It's a change of leadership. It's a change of guard in Iran. Will it be able to accomplish that with this limited strike? I don't think so. So, if you're not able to, and if you're able to sort of, just inflict some damage, significant damage, but to what extent? Because then they will recover again. Meaning this strike, B-2 bombers, all of them traveling all the way from the United States last year. It was in June, 6, 7, 8 months ago. They are back again, so they have been able to recoup all the losses that they had done. So I think here also, if it's a limited strike, it will have a limited impact. And this is, I'm sure Mr. Trump himself would have realized, and his advisors would also have advised him that it is not going to have any significant impact. So, in my view, it is diplomacy will continue to be given a chance, at least for the month or so. And I think we can have a conversation after that.
Yeah,
and see
absolutely,
what the lay of the land is.
If you
Yes.
want to summarize the current Iran situation in one line, what will be that line?
That Iranians are excellent negotiators. So, although they are down, but they are not out, and they will continue to negotiate to the in the best manner to ensure the continuation of the regime and not to be cowed by the pressure tactics of the United States.
So, since you've been there in Tehran, if Iran given an option to give up their nuclear weapons or the nuclear enrichment or ballistic missiles, what they'll prefer to give up?
I think they will reduce the enrichment of their nuclear material, not give it up completely, bring it down to 20%, as they have said. But as I said, doing away with the missile program will be committing harakiri, will be a suicidal decision by them. So I don't think they are going to give up on that.
Okay, I guess on that note, we have
Yeah.
covered a lot of topic ground, I guess, and I think, sir, we have covered almost each and every aspect of it, from
Yeah.
Trump, from Bibi Netanyahu to India's
India
position.
equation, yes.
And perhaps I think this was the bang of a start, sir, for our podcast series, and I'm very sure that our audience also will love this conversation as much as I did, and I don't know about Siddharth.
No, I also enjoyed it a lot, and I would urge our audience to engage with us in the comment section and let us know what did you make of this situation, and what are your key takeaways from this conversation that we had with Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar. Sir, we are looking forward to many more conversations like this with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Siddharth. Thank you very much, Yash.
Thank
I've
you, sir.
also enjoyed this conversation. I mean, I didn't know how quickly the time has flown, and we've really been able to cover the whole gamut.
Yeah.
You know, when I came in, I didn't realize we had so much of material that could engage us for about an hour or so. But
Yeah.
that is how it has been, and I have enjoyed it thoroughly. I wish all of you a great start, great success, and wish all your viewers and listeners the very best.
Well,
Thank you.
at that note, we'll conclude this conversation and we'll request you to please subscribe to Times Now, because it takes a lot of hard work to curate such content and get such great people on this very platform. So please go and subscribe, like, and comment on our platform. I'm Yash, and with me is Siddharth, signing off for this edition of TN Podcast.